Joining us is another exceptional aviator. He is a professional CFI, II, and MEI flight instructor, a former Embraer 145 airline pilot, a King Air instructor, a Falcon 2000 commander, a captain, and a corporate operator as well. He joins us fresh from the Formula One weekend in Austin, Texas, from his layover in Napa, California. Please help me in welcoming back to the show, Captain Roger. Captain, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. Glad to be here. I hope you guys are as well. I ran off the flight line and drove through some traffic, and here I am. I haven't eaten, but I'm here. I'm here for you guys.
Oh my God. Well, we'll hopefully make up for the fact that you haven't eaten by having some stimulating conversation.
That's another thing you can tell is a little different between me and the airline pilots that are out there. You know, if I was an airline pilot, I'd be off eating, and you guys would be waiting for me to make sure that I got back and I got my nutritional food, so I could actually. Everyone else on the airplane can wait because I got to get something.
You have. I think we talked about that last time.
But I digress.
Well, earlier, I'm so glad you're here, Roger. And we missed each other. I can't believe it. I got a trip. I land in Austin, Texas last week, which we're going to talk about here in a few moments. And I'm there, and we're texting back and forth about the podcast, trying to coordinate schedules with John and with Terry and with all of you guys. And I'm like, hey, what are you doing right now? And they're like, oh, I'm leaving the hotel. And I figured, oh, okay, you're on a layover somewhere. I didn't keep up. And I'm like, well, Terry just texted me. He's in San Diego. I was wondering if you're, and you're like, oh, and Terry just told us all about our tag and his experience there, and a fantastic organization. And unfortunately, you guys weren't there. And then after texting a couple more times, I realized, oh, wait a minute. I'm in Austin. You were in Austin. How did we miss this? We should have had a beer or something together. And Formula One weekend in Austin was crazy. I mean, we got to the hotel and there's cars and women in tight sequence dresses walking around in heels and parties and music. And I was like, I got to write down some notes for my next podcast. So
this is one of the positive times that you actually had from being at an airline where you guys have your preset hotels. Because I had no idea. This trip that I did had been on the schedule for a long time. I didn't really think much of it. I've been extremely busy lately, just back to back to back. I was in Austin. I totally forgot I was in Austin. That was not that long ago. And I got on the computer to make my reservations a couple days before, and there's no hotels. There are no cars. We were up in the boondocks, man. We were way up north without a car because there was no rental cars. The closest rental car I could find was for $120 a day for this little, Ford Fiesta down in San Antonio. That was the closest rental car I could find. So we're Ubering everywhere, and we're staying up, not horrible, but up in Round Rock, Texas, apparently away from the more exciting aspects of the F1 race, I guess, if you will.
Downtown.
But yeah, I'm sure downtown was hopping in Austin, and I missed that part because the hotel was ridiculously expensive too, just to find the room, the two rooms. Yeah.
Yeah, our hotel had a Formula One merchandise right there in the lobby, and I mean, I didn't see any of them, but we heard about the really big name celebrities, Shaquille O'Neal, the Serena sisters. I mean, pretty crazy stuff. A lot of people were there.
I'm guessing that's the Williams sisters.
Oh yeah, huh? You're the tennis guy, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Serena being one of them, but
of them, yeah, she's the one that's on TV all the time, right? I got it. Yeah. Well,
that was another really busy weekend with the plane flying into there, and then I backed it up, with this one, and because it's even busier out here than it was last weekend in Austin.
Yeah, it's been crazy, and it's a good thing, especially for us aviators,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as we mentioned in the opener of the show, all the topics that I came up with, I wrote down in my notebook on that trip that I had where I was in Austin for the layover. I mean, fatigue, van driver tips, cockpit slops, monitor greater turbulence, max takeoff performance, landing at max landing weight, all this stuff. So let's kind of scratch the surface and walk everyone through it. That week, earlier this week, I should say, I flew this 4-day trip. I bid it. This is what I wanted. It was a 4-day trip that had a Hawaii layover in it, which I normally don't do that kind of thing. It's not 3 days on the beach. It's 4-day trips with one layover being in Hawaii and Honolulu, as a matter of fact. And it was a short layover, 12 hours, and then right back at it, and then keep going. And I don't think I've ever done this before. It's always like out to Hawaii, one leg and one leg back, and you're done. I mean, it's a lot of flying. So I wanted to try it out. I wanted to see if it's worth the high time sequence. So I flew 4 days, a total of 9,463 nautical miles, 26 hours of flight time, under 79 hours of time away from base. Now that's the time that from when I clocked in at the beginning of my first day to the last day of the trip to when I was ready to, go to the employee bus and get out of there. So 79 hours in a row, I was working. On the 22nd of October, the day started early in the morning. The nice marine layer was coming in from the Pacific, covering the first half or the western half of LAX. And I sat in the employee parking lot that morning and actually watched a couple heavies take off and disappearing into the mist. It was fantastic. I actually have some recordings of that, and we'll feature them throughout these podcasts in the future. So Sunday night, we landed in DCA, and unfortunately, after a certain time, they don't land on 1 and 19. They shut down that operation. So at night, you are restricted to landing on runway 15 or 33. Now, for those that don't know, runway 15, which was our planned landing, is 5,204 feet long total. And we went from a 319 to a 321 at a max landing weight for the curfew of 166,000 pounds, which we complied with. And this was a maximum effort, full flaps, full braking landing. And it was the captain's leg, and he did a fantastic job. What impressed me was the fact that we were so low over the Pentagon on approach that I could look inside the windows in the hallways of the Pentagon. And I had never been that low. Taking off, sometimes you turn and you're over Crystal City, the Pentagon. Great. You're hundreds of feet up. I was worried that the gear or the tail would touch an antenna or something coming off the roof. That's how low we were. And he landed perfectly right in the touchdown zone, and max reverse, max braking, and my shoulder harnesses work, man. Let's just say that. As the Potomac got closer and closer, as we approached the end of the runway, I looked over and just glanced at him, and the man was standing on those brakes. The anti-skid, anti-lock systems work perfectly on that Airbus, let me tell you. We were able to turn off the runway at its intersection with 22, I believe it was, and we taxied back to the gate. Probably had about 800-900 feet of runway left if we would have come to a complete stop. And I'll tell you, Sunday was exhausting. Have you ever had a day like that?
Yeah, I can't think of any specific days, but yeah, I think we've all had those days where, you're flying all day and, through crappy weather and passengers who are late, not sticking to the schedule, and you're bumping up on the edge of your duty day and flight time limits and whatnot. And I think we've all had those, and they are exhausting.
Yeah. I think what people don't realize, they think that we sit up there and, drink coffee and read the paper and things during that long 5 hour, 6 hour flight or whatever it is. But they don't realize, though there might be at times of lulls, especially under long periods of times of like flying for a week or two and just everything going to plan. And then all it takes is one or two legs into weather, into a short runway at night that are so mentally taxing on your body that when you get to the hotel, I mean, all you can do is drink some water and go to bed.
I think that's one of the hard things about flying at the regional airlines. Because if like the days that I remember the kind of being the most like that is you get a day out of a hub. I remember Houston for me. You were probably more O'Hare, but you get it's a hub and spoke system. So you got this weather system that's over your hub airport, a major huge class Bravo airport, and you're doing an out and back. It's the same system. You go to, in my case, Louisiana. You fly from your hub and it's crappy weather, and then you fly out and it's crappy weather, and you turn around and then you got an edict time, and you fly back into crappy weather again, and you turn back around and now you're late, and you fly out again to then fly back into your hub airport again, and then maybe you're trying to commute home. I mean, I guess at that point a hotel's great. Sometimes you're trying to get a commute home, and you're done, you're cooked.
Yeah.
And that's one of the unfortunate things, like I say, about the regional airlines is you fly a little bit more because you can do 4 or 5 legs. They're short legs. That's where you're working the hardest. And if you happen to be flying within, you flew into a weather system. Well, what happens if you're at, some regional airline based in O'Hare and you're flying from O'Hare to South Bend, Indiana? I mean, can you imagine what that's not just one flight, that's 2 flights because you're going out and then you're turning around and you're coming right back into it. And then you're going out again.
Yeah.
And those are the days. I mean, I did it. Captain Tony did it. Actually, Terry did it for a while also. I'm glad I'm done with it, but I tip my cap to all you regional guys. Hang in there, because I think that's oftentimes the hardest kind of flying because of what you just talked about it. Except you're in and out of it multiple times.
Yeah. And in different time zones, I mean, you're dealing with, hey, I got up this morning at 4 a.m. Body clock time.
Potentially different time zones.
That could have been 1 a.m. if I'm, East Coast or West Coast or whatever. It's tough. And that's part of the flying career that most people don't discuss is, the flying's great. Going out and just grabbing a tailwheel endorsement and going out and jumping in a Cub, that's fantastic. My heart races just thinking about that. We just had Christy Wong on the show, and she took me up in her Warrior. And that brought back a flood of passion for aviation. And you sit there and you go, I want to be an airline pilot and I want to do this. And yeah, you're a pilot, and your skills and your professionalism and your ability to recall procedures and policies are fantastic. And that's all great. But when you get to those days, like Roger mentioned, where you're in and out of that constant beating of weather and time zones and body clock times and your window of circadian low and the wackle flying that you're doing, it's very difficult on the human body. It's difficult, all the stress. And the main thing is that we learn how to contend with that. Terry, how do you contend with those kind of stresses out on the flight line?
Well, going back to what you were saying, at the end of the day, it's a job. Like any other job, it is still a job. And at times it's great. It's an awesome job and I want to be there. But at times, it's a job and it's work. And like any other job, it tires you, it wears on you. There are good times and bad times. And, it's just something to remember is that the grass is greener on that side, but sometimes there are some brown patches. So, how do you contend with it? fitness is one way that a lot of guys do. They make sure that they take care of themselves. They eat healthy, they exercise, whether they're on the road or at home. You've got to find those ways to de-stress, whether it's shooting at 14-year-olds on Call of Duty, or going out for a 5-mile run. You've got to have those ways to unwind and de-stress. Otherwise, it's going to wear on you to the point where it could break you.
Yeah, it could create a situation where you start making piss poor judgment, and that is a career ender. It can be.